Welcome to the Leo Training Podcast with Joe DeLeo. You'll hear in-depth interviews and tips from world-class athletes, coaches, and industry-leading experts to help you train smarter and improve at what you love to do. Train smarter, get stronger, move better, race faster. Here's your host, Joe DeLeo.
Hey, we're back with episode 33 of the Leo Training Podcast. This week's guest is StrongFirst team leader Martine Kerr. Martine and I discuss what it's like living and working in Dubai, her work as a technical coach in the realm of kettlebells, and she helps share some of her best practices in content marketing strategy. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this brand new episode. Martine Kerr, welcome to the Leo Training Podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on to the show. I'm very excited and honored to have you on.
Thank you very much for inviting me on. It's an honor. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of months now.
Yeah, we've had this one in the works, so it'll be great to sit down, chat with you, and share some great content with the strength and conditioning and StrongFirst community. Great. Before we launch into some of the content and topics we have down, why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself for those in my audience that may not be familiar with you and your work. Let them know a little bit about you and kind of who you are, where you're from, and what you're currently up to.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Martine Kerr. I am a StrongFirst team leader, and I currently work out of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, although I am Canadian by birth, and I'm currently in Canada visiting my family for a couple of weeks this summer. So about me, I'm more or less a fitness instructor, a coach, passionate about movement. My big thing in life is to actually try to instill this same passion in other people and help them live better lives through, embracing a more physical, active lifestyle.
I love that. And for anybody that follows you on social media, that energy and that passion is very transparent when they look at what the type of content you put out.
Well, I'm glad that that's working, because that's what I try to be very honest to who I am when I post anything. And, my biggest critics are my students. And if they tell me that doesn't look like you or that doesn't sound like you, I know I'm doing something wrong. So I make sure that any one of my students, if they watch one of my videos, they can imagine me actually doing that in front of them live. That's
awesome. Very cool. Very cool. So why don't we just kick things off? You and I actually share a very similar background, as marketing professionals. So I'm very interested in hearing, okay, what were you doing as a marketing professional? And then how did you kind of segue into health and fitness, and why?
Okay. Well, this is actually a long story, and as my uncle says, to make a long story longer, because it always seems that I add far too much detail. I have a bachelor's degree in marketing and graphic design, but didn't start off that way. I actually started as a physics major because I'm a bit of a math geek, and I'm really, really interested in how things work. And my dad was an architect. So, and being a really good academic student, my teachers always pushed me on the science side. Now that from what I know, and I look at biomechanics, and that would have been the perfect field, but that didn't actually exist like 20 years ago. So, we forget about how old I am. But anyway, I started off as a physics major, and then I realized that I was much more creative, and I had other skills that they weren't going to be tapped into. So I swapped into marketing and graphic design, and really had a great time with that. And I spent, a couple of years working as a marketing professional and doing the old style graphic design with film, and we had to cut things out, and I'm really old, and I'm dating myself now before the age of computers. But it was really interesting. And then though I really love math. And so I decided to go and study and do an MBA. And I did my master's degree in finance and strategy. So here comes all the numbers again. And I worked a couple of years after that as a financial analyst for the Canadian Railroad, VRL. And which was great. I loved it. But then again, I was missing the marketing side of it and the graphic design. So I'm kind of like an ADD or something, that I'm right brain and left brain. And, I do something for a few weeks and then I miss the other thing and I flip flop on to the other side. And it's been the most exhilarating career from a business perspective. I have never regretted any time. But at one point when I was working as the financial analyst, I got married and we were moving from Montreal in Canada to a small town on the East Coast in Halifax. And at that point, there weren't very many jobs, finance jobs. So I had always been an active kid. I couldn't sit still. I was always fidgety, and I played soccer and softball and ice hockey, and I swam and I did gymnastics forever and dance. And, being able to move and having these lessons was my reward for being a good student. So when we moved to Halifax and I couldn't find a finance job, I actually got a job in a gym called New Bodies. And I studied and I did my first certified personal trainer training there. And I spent a year, that was my job, and I really enjoyed it. But then they opened a banking center, so the numbers kind of came back at me, so I went back to working at the bank. And it was really kind of neat that, I always, no matter what I did, even though I did work in the corporate world, I still maintained enough time working in gyms because I really enjoyed helping people and the fitness side of it. So I wore my Armani suits during the weekdays and my Lululemon at night and on the weekends. And, it was a little bit flip-floppy personality-wise, but it was really, it completely fulfilled every aspect of my personality and my being. And it was only after my son was born in 2006 that I decided to hang up the suits for good. And I devoted myself completely to fitness because I had decided that I had had enough of making rich people richer. And I wasn't going to leave a very good imprint on the world by that, and that I could do a lot better job helping people live healthier lives, and that I would have more of an impact that way. And so that's how I pursued that. I'm not going to say that I won't take a finance job if it gets presented to me. I might do it because I do like it. But so this is where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. Well, amazing. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that story, and good for you. Very, very awesome journey that you've been on throughout your professional career. So very cool.
Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. So now that we kind of have set the stage a little bit, people know a little bit more about you and everything. And I think that's important because I always like guests to share their story, because I think it provides a lot of perspective and can show that, you can come from any background or educational background and be a very good trainer and be very successful at it. But, it requires a lot of hard work and hustle and that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about being a Canadian native and living and working in Dubai. And what is that like? I'm definitely particularly interested. My girlfriend is from Beirut, Lebanon. So I'm very curious to know, what it's like to work and live in that part of the world.
Okay. Well, your girlfriend, just so you know, we have a huge following and a huge contingent of SFGs in Lebanon. I think we had 8 of them come and certify with us in Dubai last year. So if ever you do go visit, there's lots of places to train.
Awesome.
Yeah, very, very good. But interestingly enough, how I ended up in Dubai was that I was working as an assistant vice president of marketing for a small private investment firm that got bought out by a giant bank. And my husband was a pilot flying for Air Canada, and they were not going through a very happy time either in the airline industry. So we had two plans. One, move to Dubai and see this crazy Middle East place, and we assumed we would make tons of money and it would be fantastic. Or two, hop on our sailboat and go to Barbados and spend 2 years eating fish. And that was that was plan B. Well, plan A won out over the boat. So we ended up moving to Dubai and thinking we would stay for 3 years. And it was really funny when we came for the interview. I'm wandering around and I had bought all this conservative clothing. I wore long sleeve shirts, like long skirts down to my ankles. I tied my hair back and, the whole thing. And then I'm walking around here and it's pretty normal. Like in Dubai, it's really cosmopolitan. And yes, it's true that, as a female, you don't necessarily want to be wandering around in a belly top and short shorts. But there's no problem walking around with normal clothing. There's no need to cover your hair or anything. And it's it's surprisingly not that different than being here in Toronto. Like when I'm walking around here on the street now, I suppose that some of the Middle East, modesty has rubbed off on me over the past 14 years, and I'm more comfortable wearing long pants when I'm walking around, even though it's kind of hot. But then on the flip side, I don't feel any different walking around here as I do in Dubai. So it's really not that different. I'm bursting a balloon because everybody thinks it's phenomenal. But really, you make your own life where you live. And, for us, we have a community of people, lots of Canadians, Australians, Americans, Europeans. Some of my favorite clients are locals or UAE nationals. I've had students come and travel to train with me from Pakistan, from Jordan, and other than when it is a conservative Muslim that comes to train, is I will wear a long sleeve shirt and conservative trousers. They understand that I'm a female and they want my knowledge. That's what they're buying. So they just look at me and they call me coach, or they kind of don't really look at me. They look sort of sideways. And that's okay. I can teach a Turkish get up sort of from a sideways angle. But it's a very, very, from a trainer perspective, it's an extremely rewarding environment because it's very different. I'm really hands-on. And as you probably have noticed, I'm a little bit animated. So when I'm training somebody who's not quite so naturally animated and I'm not allowed to touch them, I have to find so many more ways to describe things. And, I would have no hesitation in North America when I'm telling somebody to squeeze your glutes to kind of take my fist and kind of poke at them. But here I can't even say, but I can't point on my own body. I can't point to their body. So it becomes quite a challenging language exercise to find ways that you can communicate the same concept. And I used to find that a little bit annoying, but once I was able to recognize what a gift this is and how many more skills I'm developing by being able to say this 100 different ways rather than just one way, and being able to use, their prayers and what's the positions that they get into when they're doing their prayers, and why is this movement pattern particularly impressive or interesting to train their body. It's a really cool thing. Like, I'm loving it. It's really satisfying.
That's awesome. I can totally see how that would really expand your repertoire as an instructor and ability to communicate to a wide range of individuals. And that's really an important skill, because it just the ability to teach, anybody from, somebody that's at a younger age to an older age and in between, and varying abilities, that's going to make it that much more impactful. So very, very cool.
It really is, because what it does is it gives you so many more words in your toolbox and different metaphors that you can use. And if something doesn't click with a person, you can dig in and pick something else out. And, if somebody doesn't understand what I'm teaching, that's not their fault. That's my failure as an instructor, is because I haven't found the key to unlock that door. And so I like having a big keychain with lots of different things.
Oh, that's a great analogy. I like that. I'm going to write that one down. That's good.
This is what I do. I search analogies.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can see the proverbial wheels turning in your head as you're like coming up with some of these concepts. So, very, very cool. Keys on the keychain. I like that. Okay. So real quick detour. How did you come up with the name, Cult Fitness?
Oh, it's movement culture, but cult. My last name is Kerr, so it's a K, and I train with kettlebells, so it's a K, and so I put cult as with a K. And besides, the Dubai government, excuse me, Dubai, if you're going to be listening, don't deport me for this. But they need to have approval of all business names. And when I was going through all the different names, I didn't think cult spelt with a C was going to have a positive connotation.
Sure.
And I just like to play with the K for kettlebells and K for Kerr to throw that in there. Yeah, yes. And because it makes people curious too.
Yes, it definitely, for sure, it stands out. Absolutely. Very cool. So living in Dubai is, do a lot of your students, do they gravitate mostly towards like the kettlebells or bodyweight? Is there a specific modality that they seek you out for?
They seek me out for kettlebells because I essentially am, I call myself a technique specialist, and it's really 90% of my business. I teach people technique. And for me, it is an absolutely fundamental belief that you do not need a gym to exercise. I'm actually writing a special report now, and I'll just hint on it. It's called Screw the Gym, because I don't think you actually need one. And so I know we'll see if that goes well in the Middle East. But anyway, it's when I actually have a student that come in, they have to commit to doing at least 2 sessions on their own per week, and then they have to follow up with me with those sessions. They train kettlebells. They buy kettlebells from me or from wherever they can get them. And I don't ever want them to be dependent on me for their fitness, because I travel a lot, and, they travel a lot. And if they can't do a kettlebell swing in Germany because they're traveling to Germany, well, they still can do a hip hinge, and they can still do burpees with a proper movement, and they can still do push-ups, and there's all sorts of things that they can do. So they shouldn't have to wait until I'm available so that I can watch them. This is their responsibility to bring this to their family. And if it is a person who has a family with children, I always make sure that one of those sessions is a family-based session so that it's something that they can do with their children. I think it is a shocking disservice that we see these days that moms in particular, well, dads too, but that they pack their kids up for school and their kids never see their parents exercise. And so they should. It's something that they should be able to do together and enjoy together, and see mom struggle, see dad struggle, see somebody suck at something. My little guy, I'm not a good runner. I never have been. And we ran we took the streetcar to the edge of the park, and he's doing football camp this week, or soccer camp. And so it's a 20-minute walk or a 10-minute run. And so we ran together, and he's way ahead of me and laughing at me. And he's like, "You're really not good at this, Mom." And it's like, "No, I'm not." And he goes, "But I love the fact that," yeah. And he's like, "But I love the fact that you're trying." Well, if I couldn't have taught my son anything better in life, there's nothing better, that it's okay to be bad at something as long as you're trying and as long as you're enjoying it. My job is done for parenting. Right. I can take a vacation now, because that's just, that's an awesome thing.
No, that's great. I love that. And having the hands-on experience, getting kids to move more, especially nowadays, so important. But it's also great sort of, parent child like time together, like, something that you wouldn't necessarily normally do. They might be more apt to be doing a sport or playing with their friends, but it's good and it's healthy. You know what I mean? It's nice to get outdoors and move around. Very cool. Very cool.
So sorry, I got on my own tangent there. If I can just interject back to your question. So most people come to me for technique-based training, and we work on their kettlebell skills. We work on their body weight skills. We work on fundamental movement patterns. I will use an FMS screen. Mm-hmm. And I will also interject the TPI, which is the Titleist Performance Institute golfing screen for most of my other students, because I train a lot of hockey players. I play hockey. So, and a lot of my students actually do rugby or play soccer recreationally. And so there's a rotational component that the TPI screen is really fantastic for. And so I use some of those skills to help them out. And, it's easy to give them homework. They go ahead and do their homework on the weekend. They come train with me twice a week. We check their technique. I push their endurance a little bit to make sure that they're stress proofed. And on the flip side, I do 5 group sessions a week for my advanced students that come to my garden, because now that I don't have my studio anymore, they come and sweat in 45-degree heat outside, which is awesome, because you have to be tough. And there's nobody who's allowed to whine. And I have little face cloths in the fridge, so when it gets hot, we take them out. But they have to earn those. But that's normally how I train.
That's awesome. Now, so just for anybody that's not familiar, so 45 degrees Celsius, correct?
45 degrees Celsius. That's correct. It's not that bad. We like to train first thing in the morning. And so around 7 o'clock in the morning at this time of the year, it's probably about 35 to 40 degrees Celsius, which I guess is about 110, 112, something like that.
There we go. So
but right now we're having, Yeah. In the right now in Dubai, there's I just saw an announcement that they, with the I guess the Humidex, which is some arbitrary humidity measure, it's going to feel like 64 degrees Celsius, which I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but I'm thinking it's got to be 130 or 140, which is, I don't know if it's true. That sounds like BS to me. But anyway, I'm glad I'm not there.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you got a nice little break from the heat right now.
Yeah, it's good.
Nice. Is it super humid most of the time, or does it get dry, the temperature? No.
It's a very strange thing. You would think because it's a desert, it's dry, but because we're so close to the coast, the Arabian Gulf is just right there. It does get humid a few times a year. Like right now, at the end of July, August, and all of September, it's really, really sticky. It's quite vile. But so when we train outside, we do pretty much kettlebell swings at the beginning of a training session versus at the end. Like in the wintertime, it doesn't matter because your hands don't get wet. But right now, you've got about a 15-minute window before your hands get so wet. So you have to get your ballistics done first. We limit the number of snatches because I don't want kettlebells flying around the air. But, for swings, we're usually pretty good for 15 minutes. And simple and sinister only takes way less than that, so it's all good.
That's awesome. No, that's great. And that's a really important, safety tip there to make sure that you're taking into consideration the environmental factors around you, because that can impact quality of the session for the student as well as the safety implications. Very cool.
Yes, that's right.
So let's circle back. So tying in your marketing background, and then you also mentioned you as a coach, you needed to find other avenues, ways to teach and communicate to your students. And so one of the big ones that you use is social medias, particularly on Instagram.
Right.
I'm a huge follower and fan of your videos and stuff. So I'm not going to ask you what app you use. People are going to need to do their own research and figure it out on their own. But what I would like you to share, and I think is really interesting because this is kind of your own individual sort of how you see things. Why is that a great medium to use, and how has that been a vehicle for you to teach students who may have difficulty getting some of the technical aspects of the kettlebell lifts?
Oh, so loaded question. Yeah, definitely. The whole thing about any type of online training or videos is it can be up to a certain point a double-edged sword, because your video angle that you choose doesn't always represent everything. So I'll give a perfect example. I posted a video earlier this week about doing a rotation of a hand, as Master Sean Cairns calls it, squish the bug. And one of my fellow instructors commented that, hey, your elbow is flaring out. And it's like, no, it isn't. So we were kind of like, is it? And so I questioned myself, but when I went back and looked at it, it's like, okay, I can see where they think that, but in fact it is not. So, when you're teaching other people, you do have to be careful about what you're presenting and to try to give enough context so that, somebody reads it and, has a common sense thing there, and any sort of danger area that you can flag that right from the beginning. So as much as it's useful, it can also be dangerous. And I just wanted to say that right from the outset. So anybody thinking about doing their videos, keep that in mind, that people who don't know or have a little bit less knowledge might view your thing differently than what you intended. So this is something that I'm going to be more careful of, is to provide more context in my descriptions going forward, just to make sure that nobody kind of gets lost in the mix and practices a technique that for them would be unsafe. Oh yeah, you had a question?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so having a background in graphic design, because when I did my bachelor degree in marketing, I also did a minor in graphic design, and a 25-year passion for photography. I remember being in high school. I was part of the photo club in my 10th year, and that's where I recognized, or I discovered, I should say, that I was as tall as a 36 exposure celluloid film, because I would have to unroll it in the darkroom, and I always knew that it was done when it got to my forehead. So moving to digital wasn't an easy transition to me, but I have since definitely embraced the simplicity of it and the ability to just let the camera roll and to capture human moments. And, I try never to take myself too seriously, because that's a slippery slope that, people can kind of fall into. But that to try to let people see the human side. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I want my students to hear me and to see that that's an authentic representation of how I teach. And if I'm ranting, I want them to giggle, because I want them to say, damn straight, that's what she would say to us. And for those who don't know me, you know what? When they do meet me, I want them to say that's exactly what I expected. I don't Photoshop my face, even though I probably should. I don't color. I don't even comb my hair most days, which, other than that, there's a few videos I did where I actually curled it, and I do like those, but that's too much maintenance. So I don't wear makeup. I wear the same shirt. I have lots of people that ask me, do you want to rep our brand? And it's like, no, why would I rep your brand? I wouldn't wear your ugly stuff. So it's like, I wear my own shirt, and it's not about what I wear, Right. And a big part of this for me was, when I decided to actually launch myself on Instagram, I was really hesitant, because we all have these kind of, how shall I say, crisis of self-esteem or self-confidence, that you wonder, is what I have to say good enough? Is what I do good enough? There's so many smart people, and there's so much good information out there. But then, this is my take on these things. I'm not there to represent it. I do represent StrongFirst up to a certain point, but these are my interpretations of what I've learned. And it's not just from a StrongFirst perspective. I am a certified personal trainer. I did study with TPI, ground force methods, flexible steel, CrossFit, Kettlebell, CrossFit regular, CrossFit mobility, yoga tune-up, yoga regular, TRX this, TRX that. I've taken a gazillion workshops and courses because they all give me different eyes through which I can analyze my movement. And I wanted to bring all of that into hey, this is Martine and this is what she has to say. And it's not the same thing that you will see somebody else say, because that's their perspective. And that's the only original thing I can do, because I didn't invent the push-up. I didn't invent the plank. I didn't invent the swing. I didn't invent this or that. No, I don't even know who did invent these things. But I can sure as tell you it's not a company that's been in existence for less than 10 years. It came way before us. And to be so arrogant as to pitch it like we invented it is ridiculous. But what we do is we bring our own interpretations to that. And this all formed like a good 6 months of back and forth in my own brain, what my content strategy was and what I wanted my personal brand to be. And it was, I have a few very close friends that, we kind of form our own little advisory board and we bounced ideas off of each other. And then I remember one of my girlfriends, she's like, when I said, this is my pitch for my personal brand, blah, blah, blah. And she's looking at it. She's like, just be you. Like, just be you and be true to you. Don't try to sound more intelligent than you feel, because it'll come off as fake. Don't try to, if you make a mistake, say you're making a mistake. If it's a work in progress, say it's a work in progress. Like, people need to know that we are human. We are constantly evolving and constantly learning. And, I remember once, I think in my first RKC, I remember Pavel commenting that I had a really powerful swing. And then when I did my RKC2, I remember Jeff O'Connor telling me I needed to fix my swing. And then when we did CK-FMS, somebody else said we can tweak this swing. And then now I have somebody tell me I have a great swing, and then somebody else tells me I need to squat more. It's interesting, and I want to be able to take that information and to let my followers and the people who are interested in what I have to say, I want them to know that, I'm a student of movement. And as my body changes, as I get older, because I'm not getting any younger, these things are all very, what I used to be able to do before, I'm actually struggling with a little bit now. And it's not that I'm failing, it's that I'm just changing. And so I have to respect that. And it doesn't make what I did before any better or what I can do now any worse. It's just different. And I honor that entire experience.
That's awesome. Particularly love that last quote that you had there. It's not that I'm failing; it's that I'm changing. Because we're all in a constant state of change throughout our lives.
Right.
Very cool. So one of the awesome aspects of Instagram, they just increased the time. So I guess the video clips used to be, I think it was only 15 seconds, right? And now
15 seconds.
Yeah, so now they bumped them up to 60. So you have a minute, I think, correct?
Yeah.
So that gives individuals
Yep,
like you and I a lot more time to play with. But I think it's very incredible when the time limit was much shorter, how much you could communicate in that small window. And I'm not sure. I feel like that can be lost on some people. And that was like one of the things that jumped out to me right away is like, wow. I was like, Martine is communicating a ton of valuable information in a very abbreviated window of time. And that I think is a very rare skill, and it definitely takes some time to develop, and you have to be thinking. So there's probably, people see the video clip and they're not even realizing like all the brainstorming you did in the background before you went and like shot and edited it and stuff. So awesome job to you and kudos to that. So my question for you is, what advice would you give to someone who is going to try to utilize social media? Do you have some basic principles or suggestions to make sure that, one, you're utilizing the time that you have allotted and effectively communicate to your audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really, really critical to that is to have a sense of what your personal brand is. And I'm talking about like who we are. For me, it's about a little bit about like cult fitness, obviously, because that's the name I go under. It makes it easier. A lot of people don't even realize it's a one woman show, but anyway, but even for somebody who works at a gym, that individual there, that's their content. What can they bring to the table? Who do they want to be? What do they want to stand for? And that sort of umbrella has to dictate pretty much their entire content strategy. Because there's a lot of things that I think about that I'd like to say, but then it's like, does that add to my personal brand, or is that just me wanting to vent? And I do allow myself one vent a month because I certainly have enough of it. But it really, knowing what you want to stand for, and that keeps your content consistent as well, so that when somebody sees one of my videos right off the bat, they pretty much within about 2 seconds they know it's me, if they follow me anyway, just from the style of it, from how I write it, the fact that there will always be a description, that I don't just put a video, because some people do, they put a video just with a batch of hashtags. Some people put video that's only a video of them exercising, a demo of them exercising something, which is great. That's their idea, that's their content. I'm a little bit different. I came up with a content strategy, and this is the other point that goes with personal brand, is that you really need to decide what you want to put on your feed. And so the way that I came up with it was 70% of what I posted was going to have to add value, was going to have to be a teaching point. 20% was going to be an insight in my personality, and 10%, as capped at 10%, was going to be some form of promotion. I think I probably might have hit 2% of promotion. I put an ad when I did a flexible steel workshop. I put an ad when we ran StrongFirst, but that's about it. I haven't done anything else yet. But when I do actually finally get the time to put all of this video content in a subscription site, or I'm writing an ebook, a series, a training course, a marketing training course, a new instructor instructor manual, I will probably put a little flag there for a promotion, but cap at 10%. I don't think that you can constantly be asking people to buy things. That's not a content strategy. Content strategy is about the viewer, the follower, the listener. It's about what do they want to learn. Their time is precious. And if they're going to spend 30 seconds, 15 seconds ideally with me, I want to give them way more than 15 seconds worth of value for their time. And then hopefully they'll share it, they'll talk about it, they'll ask to have me teach. That's the best honor, is when I get somebody that says, hey, can you come and teach at our gym, and I'm in California, or I'm in this place. And it's like, I'd love to. I don't live there, but of course I'd love to. I had a follower reach out to me from New York City, and I went in and we did a little bit of a charity workout and, a little bit of a technique class. And the deal was that she's now going to take the extra money that she made from that, and she's going to donate her time to help some single moms. And that's my way of giving back to people who really deserve to be fit, but that can't afford it, because fitness has almost become now one of these stupid luxury goods. And, nobody owns fitness. We all deserve it. And the people who are struggling with their kids, are struggling to feed, whatever, they should have access to good information. Let me teach you how to pick up your child. Let me teach you how to put a big salad bowl in the top drawer or the top shelf, and keep your shoulders safe. This is all stuff that I think that you want to be able to put yourself out there in the market, like if you're going to be social media savvy, and to let people connect with you as a human being. And then, they don't feel embarrassed when they reach out and say, hey, can you come and help me? Because they actually feel like they know you enough. And I actually feel like they know me enough. And I respond to anybody who sends me a private message, except for that creep who did the other day there. I will respond to every personal message that comes my way for questions as much as I can. Ideally, they're going to seek out a personal coach. They're going to find an SFG out there because that's the best way to learn. And that's the message I'm trying to send. But if they have a quick question that I can help them with, or if I can connect them with an instructor that I've met, because I've met a lot of instructors around the world. And if I can say, hey, so-and-so here in Seattle, you got to go see Jeff, you got to see Andrea, you got to go see Shannon. These are all people out of Seattle. And that was a question that I got not long ago. So, this is the thing. We put ourselves up in social media. We open ourselves to criticism. We open ourselves to creepy people following us, which is fine because I'm Canadian and I may be naive, but I think that I would rather go to my deathbed having been a little bit gullible than cynical. So I'm going to assume that there's more good people out there than bad people. And as long as I can continue to be true to who I am and to honor my passion for movement and my belief that everybody deserves to have knowledge on how to live a fitter life, then I can't really go wrong now, can I?
Definitely not. That's awesome. Such a powerful message. Very, very cool. So I have to ask, is the person that you connected with in New York City, is that the movement maestro, Shante?
I did meet the movement maestro, Shante. We had lunch, which is absolutely awesome. It was so phenomenal to actually get to meet her, and she had offered to come and check out my clicky hip, which is funny. So she gave me some corrective exercises that I didn't know about, which I have been doing, not as much as I should, but I have. And she just finished her. She just finished a cross-country trip and is in California now, and I'm actually going to be in Hollywood in September because this lovely little book that I contributed to, Health and Wellness Today, ended up as a bestseller, funny enough, and we get to get an award for that. So I have to go to Hollywood to get my award, and I'm going to meet up with her there again.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Be sure to give me a link. I'll make sure to include the link to the book in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, okay, sure. It's a really simple little chapter. It was, the goal was to anybody who's scared of kettlebells or is not sure about them, here is hopefully enough information that you will actually be curious. So yeah, there's no training advice in there.
Awesome. Okay. So, do you have any current training goals that you're working on or working towards?
Yeah, actually, I got a couple. The main one is actually cultivating patience. That's probably the best one I can work with. I have funky shoulders, and in fact, when I was a little kid, I dislocated both shoulders skiing, and my right one was repaired. I think the week after I did my RKC, because I had to learn how to snatch all of my snatches with one arm only. I didn't have to in the end, but I had trained for it. But my left one is still a little bit funky. It needs to have anchoring put in so it can surgically not sublux any longer. But I've been avoiding that like the plague. So because it's a 10-month recovery, and so I had PRP done and bone marrow injections last year, and that is slowly starting to work, and it feels fantastic. So, I have goals. I want to be able to press a 24 kilo. That thing It's sitting there and it's staring at me, but it's not happening yet, but I'm still working on it. And I want to get back to being able to do 10 strict pull-ups, because when I had that happen with my shoulder last time, it went funky on me. I haven't been able to do a pull-up. So I'm working on that slowly.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, keep me posted on how the progress you're making for those and stuff, and definitely wishing you a speedy recovery.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to share or touch on that we haven't covered so far before we move into the rapid fire questions?
Oh dear, rapid fire. You didn't tell me about those. Back to the whole thing is I'm really, really lucky because I have a very wide educational background and a work experience from the marketing side, graphic design. I design my own websites. I do all my own advertisements, whatnot, to video editing. I absolutely am fascinated with video editing. I love iPhone apps because those work phenomenally well, although now it seems like the last 3 that I have are no longer functioning, so I'll have to go and do some more searching. But don't be scared. I would tell everybody not to be scared from a social media perspective of putting yourself out there. And, people need to know they need to understand who you are, and they need to feel you as a human being. And when they can connect with you that way, I think that's a really, really powerful thing as a trainer. And if you can inspire them, even without them necessarily coming and buying your services, if you can inspire them to work and to want to become a little bit more physically active, then we are in fact advancing the human race in some way, shape, or form. And I think that is going to be good for the industry all around. There's so much rubbish out there. Like when I did my early kettlebell training way back when, and I pretty much studied under YouTube University, and I didn't have enough information to know what was good and what was bad. So there was so much garbage out there that even with my fitness background, I had a hard time sorting through the BS to find the good advice. And it was only by, weird coincidence that I fell upon a very short video by, Pavel Tsatsouline, that it was like, oh, okay, this actually makes sense to me. And when I see the challenge that people have when we see people posting things on social media all the time, and the form is a little bit questionable, or at least I'm not sure what the intent is of the movement. So I won't comment badly because it might be some funky sport related move that I'm not a specialist in. But what I want my people and what I want other people who are inspired to get to social media is we need to put better information out there so that eventually it becomes more than the BS, and that it's easier. People will find us by default, and they will not be able to find so much of the crap, and that we make people more discerning so that they have more expectations. And, Joe Schmo, who's over there showing a kettlebell swing on one foot on a Bosu ball that's upside down, well, you know what? That might be some sort of specialized variety of some sort. But 95% of the people don't need to do that. And I can't think of anybody who needs to do that. But for the rest of us, this is just not doing anybody any favors by putting that fancy stuff out there. And it scares people. And we have to remember that we need to touch not just the elite athletes who are already good at movement. We need to touch everybody else. And it's only by getting them more active that we can get their children more active, and that we can really change the future and make this fitness not even a lifestyle. Well, yeah, more of a lifestyle, not even a bad, like with a negative connotation. You don't work out to pay for your cupcake. You work out just like you brush your teeth, or that we need to make that a natural not even a consequence, but a natural part of our life.
Right.
And only then will we actually see that the entire human population is going to see some more benefit. And that, I think, is a greater purpose for all of us. It's not just getting the fancy, NBA athlete. Oh, I get that. I train this fantastic, athlete or this pro here and there. They're great to train. But what about the old lady, like my mother, sorry, Mom, that has a hard time, that her SI joint gets thrown off once in a while? She needs to have confidence in getting out of her chair. Eventually she doesn't like the movement to squat, but it's like, what do you think going to the toilet is? It's just, we need to bring this home to these people and to everybody. And I think that it's really important if we can make the message more easily digestible and more familiar and more friendly and touch more people, that I think that we have a goal that is much, much, much wider than just the current fitness population that we're touching.
I love that. I love the emphasis on, helping out sort of the greater population as a whole, and also really the emphasis on high quality content and education.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay. Rapid fire time.
Uh-oh. I'm nervous now.
No, this will be good. This will be fun.
All right.
So these are all just questions so the audience can get you to know better. Some of them are sort of serious and some are just like fun stuff. Okay. So first question. So Martine, given your current knowledge and experience throughout your professional career, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago?
What advice? Oh my gosh. I would, oh my God. That's a hard one, because I would have probably gone back and found somebody who actually taught biophysics. And don't, because that would have been the best thing. You know what? The advice I would give myself is to look at everything that's presented to you is an opportunity to learn and embrace that. And you might not like it, but there's something in there. I'm not a hugely religious person or anything, but I do believe in karma. So if somebody's there, if somebody's there giving you a hard time for whatever reason, or challenging you in a way, there's a lesson for you to learn and to embrace that. And it's okay to get annoyed, but to embrace that for what that can potentially do and develop you as a human.
Awesome. Okay, you have to pick one. What is your favorite strength training exercise?
The swing.
Awesome. How has your training changed today compared to 10 years ago?
Oh, well, I've only just realized that my brain still thinks I'm 20 and my body is not agreeing. So my training, 10 years is actually probably not quite long enough because I'm pretty similar to what I was about 10 years ago. But let's say 15 years ago, I'm significantly more mindful now at the recovery process. That it's not all go big and go home. You're not always. I was always a very big HIIT or like high intensity training person, going into a lot of intervals, and working really, really hard, no pain, no gain kind of stuff. I am so not like that now. I will train smart. I will stop before things get ugly. It's how I train my students. Yes, I push myself on a regular basis, but I always know that there's time. There will be another day, and I can always do another set. And quality must trump quantity, regardless of what I feel like on that day. So that has, 15 years ago, I probably would have, if it said I had to do 100 sets of something, I was going to do that 100 sets no matter what. I am an A-type personality. So if it says it on the board, I'm kind of going to do it. Now, however, I will take the entire day to do that 100 sets.
Awesome. Very good. Great advice there for the listeners to put into their own practice. Okay, so you kind of touched on this earlier, but just to kind of revisit and then summarize real quickly, what injury have you had, and how did that injury affect your training?
Oh my God, I thought you wanted a summary. Sheesh. Man, oh man. I have ganglion cysts in both wrists. So that affects Turkish get-ups, that affects swing, that if I have numbness in four fingers on my hands, and I have really small hands. So for me to hold a kettlebell that's too heavy, I can't because I don't have any strength in four fingers. So when we look at simple and sinister, for example, I will never be able to swing a 32 kilo kettlebell with one hand. It just doesn't, I don't have enough real estate to hold on to the handle because these two fingers don't actually meet in front of that handle size. So I flip it around and I do the Turkish get up with a heavy weight instead. I'm herniated all the way from breastbone all the way to pubic bone from when my son decided that he was going to stretch his little feet and he poked his toes, I think, through my linea alba all the way around. So that affects my ability to pressurize and to deadlift. So I have to be smart. I've got dodgy shoulders. I've got a sleepy butt sometimes. Essentially, I'm a mess. And it's from a lifetime of movement. And, I was a gymnast. I played ice hockey. I fell. I was an active kid. I climbed trees. It's just, I moved. And so now, do I wish I didn't move as a kid? No. So I'm just smart. And, I know that doing heavy jerks, for example, kettlebell jerks, that will always irritate one of my hernias on my abdomen. And so I just don't do it because it's not worth because then it affects everything else. So that movement, I do it to recertify and that's it. So I just have to be smart about it. And if things start to get a little bit achy, then I take more time to rest and I work on other things. I've got enough things I want to learn how to do, so.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
I'm a mess.
Okay, this is an important question. So what is one thing that junior athletes, so the 14 to 18 range or younger, what should they be doing more of to complement their training and their health?
Oh, more of. Oh, gosh. I think they should be doing more of everything. So being more playful and not specializing. So, when we look at, I look at my kid, he plays ice hockey. So we call it ice hockey in Dubai because they also have field hockey, which is funny when I come to Canada. But so he plays hockey, and a lot of the kids, that's all they do. But that actually creates potential for wear and tear issues and movement compensations. So I want him to do stuff that's not in a crouched position. I'd love him to do diving, for crying out loud, or something different. So last week we were here, and I put him in a sailing camp. So he would learn how to move his body in a different way and develop an overall athleticism that is not so sports specific. So that's what I think that the kids should do, is to do something, find out what you're really bad at and work at that.
Love that.
That's so that means I'm going to be running this week because I'm really bad at that.
Awesome. Okay. What's your best tip to improve recovery after a training session?
Hydrate. There's a lot of talk these days about different, protein recovery. You need your branched chain amino acids. You need your carbohydrate, protein. That's all stuff that's way above my head. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist, but I always say when you're done your training, you got to make sure that, especially because we train in the heat. But I want somebody to hydrate, and if you're not drinking 2 liters of water, or which is, I guess, 8 cups or 3, we tend to drink 3 to 4 liters of water in the Middle East. So if you're not drinking that much, then your body is not going to be working optimally. And so for me, that's the big thing, is to make sure that you drink enough water.
Awesome. Okay. What is your favorite meal?
Oh, beef cheek ravioli in a Madeira consomme.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what that is. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh man, that sounds really good.
But I can't. But then, or like pulled pork, tortillas with like corn tortilla tacos. Like, oh, yum, yum. I'm hungry now.
Awesome. Both of those options sound delicious. Okay.
There.
Final question. What's one book everyone should read?
Oh God, one book everybody should read. That's a tough. That's not a fair question. I honestly haven't read a book in a long time. But I mean, as a parent, there's one that is I don't even remember the title. I really wish I did. It's something about the failure of parenting, which is really interesting. Talk about how we seem to be failing our kids by letting their peers and the internet kind of raise them a little bit. But I'm going to sound like an idiot because I don't remember who wrote that. It was just given to me recently too.
That's all right.
I can't answer. Yeah, I don't know really because there's so many good books, and I don't think that everybody should read every book that they can that tickles their fancy, but make sure that you read one book per year that actually is out of your sphere of interest so that you actually learn and can innovate. Because this is the thing, I talked to some of my kettlebell peers, and, some of the questions on the forums are like, how can I do to progress? How can I do to progress? And they're like, well, you need to read everything that Pavel ever wrote. And I absolutely agree. But on the flip side, you also need to read stuff that you might not really agree with, because that's where the innovation is. And to find different things, I'll read a book about home decor just to find analogies, because some of my students actually care about paint colors. And, I'll use that. Like, the different lighting will actually change things. So when you wake up and you feel differently because you've eaten a different type of meal, your body's going to be different. So I might actually bring in that thing. And it doesn't actually help my training knowledge, but it helps my ability to communicate that knowledge better. And I think that's what we can definitely all use, because, we can all use to communicate better.
Awesome. I love that about reading one book a year at least outside of your sphere of comfort or a different area. Very good advice. Awesome. So,
and if you do it and you can hate it, you can rant to me personally. You can send me a private message and tell me how much you hate the book, and I'll bet you I can find one thing in there that you can use.
I believe it. Martine, do you have anything else to add? This has been an absolute pleasure.
I don't, but I just wanted to say absolutely thank you to you, and to thank you to everybody else who might be listening or will listen. It's like I said, for me, I put myself out there, and I want people to be curious about fitness. I want people to be curious about exercise, and not to be scared to be new at something. It's okay to suck at something. Eventually you will suck less. And it's in that journey. That's where the growth happens. I mean, you look at the progress that somebody has. It's not in the last 6 months of a 10-year career. It's usually in the first 6 months that they've ever exercised. That's where they learn to move better. That's where they get the passion and they get all fired up. That's phenomenal. And that's something I would want everybody to experience. And so if they are scared, it doesn't have to be kettlebells. You can do amazing things with your own body weight. Like I said, you don't need a gym. You can do stuff. You can do push-ups on your kitchen counter, on your coffee table, on your stairs, and on your couch. Like, as you progress to a better thing, you can do it in your own home, and you do not need to be wearing designer clothes either. So, people, you go to the gym and it's a fashion show, and it's not necessary. And I think that intimidates people. And so get yourself the ugliest pair of sweatpants, you have, the ugly shirt you have, put some good music on and, dance a little bit around your kitchen for 20 minutes and see how you feel at the end, if it makes you smile a little bit. And then do it again, and then do it again. And then next thing you know, you have now become the fitter person that you hoped you were.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I love the idea about adding some play in there and wearing a ugly sweatpants and sweater.
I have some. That's why I say that.
That's
I have
awesome.
some sweatpants that I bought some 15. Oh my God, no! I bought them before I moved to Dubai, so they're probably 20 years old, and they're full of holes, and they're really ugly, and they sag. They look like I'm wearing a diaper, but I wear them all the time. So they're my favorite. They make me feel happy. So it's good.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, like I said, this has been a pleasure. I'm so glad you came on. Please hang on the line so I can give you a proper goodbye, and we will wrap up this episode.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to this brand new episode of the Leo Training Podcast. If you enjoyed the content, I would greatly appreciate it if you would take a moment of your time, head on over to iTunes and drop in a 5-star review. Or please share this episode on your favorite social media networks such as Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And please be sure to tune in next week for another brand new episode when I interview FMS Advisory Board Member and StrongFirst Chief SFG, Brett Jones.
Thanks for listening to the Leo Training Podcast. Subscribe and get even more expert training tips at www.leotraining.io.